Welcome to IndieSponge. It's IONCINEMA.com's soon to be released weekly video podcast. I'm joined by Kevin Jagernauth. Kevin,
How are you doing?
very good. We've got quite the film, and it's a long delayed film that's being released in the US for the very first time, 6 years after it was feted and maligned a little bit in 2019 at the Venice Film Festival. We'll slowly go into that. Before we launch into our regular podcast, this is a review. This is one segment of what will be a regular feature on the podcast. So we're going to review An Officer and a Spy. This is Roman Polanski's 2019 film, formerly known as D or The Dreyfus Affair. And it was released in France as J'accuse. And I guess we can briefly talk about works of art, and if we're in line with the idea of judging the person behind it. This was fated at the César in 2020, and that's the famous moment where Adele Anel stormed out when Polanski, who wasn't there physically, had won Best Director. It's being released by the Film Forum. So yeah, so how do we feel about its release?
Uh, I mean, it's fine. I mean, I think people can make the decision to see it or not. I would say that it's not an essential film, uh, by Polanski. So if you're feeling that you're missing something or that you have to weigh your ethics against seeing this film, I would say you don't have to. It's uh it's well made and all of those things for what it is, but you know, everyone, I think, depending on the person and the circumstances, makes their own sort of, they weigh their own sort of values, I guess, and whether or not they're going to see a picture or watch or listen to a song or all of those things. So,
Mhm.
particular case, yeah, it's fine, and I'm not surprised it took 6 years to be released. I remember at the time, just before Venice, it was being presented in the Cannes Marché, and there was an, I think the trades were reporting that like no North American distributors were even considering it at the time. It was just too much of a hot potato, and I guess even now, 6 years later, it's still too much of a hot potato. I mean, it's an obscure, not an obscure. It's just it's not even a real. It's not even a film industry distributor who's releasing it in New York. It's getting a very brief run for 1 week, I think,
Mhm.
probably at most, and that'll be it.
So I think the curiosity factor for me was the fact that it did receive a lot of critical weight and support, um, and um, and even to some extent, the jury president that year was Lucrezia Martel, and she too had that sentiment. It's like she she wanted to let the audiences or her jury judge on their own what the merit is of including this film in the competition. Uh,
Mm,
and so, yeah, 6 years later, now we got the opportunity to review it. Um, just from the get-go, I was really impressed by that opening shot. The
mm,
it's takes place in the military courtyard, and it just reminds me of having a whole bunch of stand-ins. I don't want to say it was swoon, but I was like, oh, this reminds me of certain cinema where you have to gather a whole bunch of extras. You have to find all that military garb. And so I had a smile on my face from the get-go. Um, Essentially, this is a film about spending a moment in another person's shoes. One person is suffering hell. That person might take over that lead. How did you think? What did you think about the actual story, the setup of the film, the screenplay?
Well, I think we should probably give a quick synopsis for those who maybe haven't watched the film. It's or who are not familiar with it, but it's basically based on a true story, set in 1890, basically in the late 1800s, leading into the 20th century. And it's about Alfred Dreyfus, captain of the French army, who is also Jewish, who is found guilty of treason and sent to jail on Devil's Island. And slowly but surely, his former teacher, Georges Picot, played by Jean Dujardin, begins to realize that maybe he was framed or found guilty on very flimsy evidence. So even though he's an anti-Semite, he goes on this journey to try and free this man out of a simple act of justice. He wants to see justice done. He wants the French army to uphold its own values and not sweep this under the rug. So, I mean, it's a compelling story. I think it's been done in cinema maybe a couple times before. I can't remember, but it's a compelling story. And the thing that struck me the most was that really, it struck me after I watched the film, is this is a movie that could easily be a play. Like it's really just a lot of people in rooms having conversations. And yet it's like very compelling. It's very it moves along quickly. Uh and yeah, as you said, it is really about getting into spending time in one man's shoes as he like grapples with his duty to his own moral barometer and also his duty to his country, I suppose.
You mentioned that it could easily been made into a play. I was thinking of Carnage when you mentioned that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's too many films, especially in his earlier filmography, that resemble this. However, I want to say that it sort of like fits with the last his last features in terms of uh, I don't want to say style, but in terms of tone. Um,
Mm,
yeah, I was quite drawn into this idea that Jean Dujardin's character as a colonel, he's very upfront about his anti-Semitic sentiments. And what I found interesting about this character is like his moral compass is perhaps just as lousy as everybody else that populate
mm,
the film. But I like the fact that this character essentially splinters himself and is able to go the distance and not make a right wrong, not make a wrong right, but um, there's something noble about his journey. I was wondering if you were drawn to the fact that there's this curious technique that Polanski uses where we fade into the story, we fade out of the story, we move in time. It's a
mm.
very specific, uh, almost fade to black type technique. I was wondering if that was bothersome in any way for you, or it lets you sort of like let things play out in a very docile way. I want to say that the pacing here is actually quite deliberate, that we take our time moving back and forth, moving away from the case, moving into the case,
Mm.
without really getting into Dujardin's Picard character's personal life, where it's almost as if it's all procedural to some extent or courtroom
Yeah.
based.
Well, I
And
mean, it's procedural, but we do see flat. I mean, he has a mistress, which is a big part, where that is his personal life.
mhm.
But I was actually really struck by the editing. Like I kind of feel it does a lot of the heavy lifting and making the movie as compelling as it is. It's cut by Polanski's longtime editor, Hervé Deleuze. Um, and it really like he does some like really interesting things. Like the way he cuts really hard between scenes. There's some like there's some interesting match cuts.
Mhm.
The way he transitions from scene to scene, you're right. Like sometimes it's very like slow is not the right word, but it's very patient.
Yeah.
And but other times he's really like clipping it along. It's interesting, and I think it just shows his relationship to Polanski and his films and how he knows how to bring them to life. At least in his latter day films, because he started working with him in '86. Uh, and the other thing I'll say about Picard, Jean Dujardin's character, is that he compartmentalizes like everything that in his life. Um, he's anti-Semitic, but he's also going to stand up for this fellow soldier. Um, he believes himself to have a strong moral character, but he's carrying on an affair with his friend's wife. Like he's very good at like making the world appear to be of living his life in a way that he feels presents himself in the best light, while also making these decisions that hides all of his flaws, I would say.
Were you surprised by, I want to say, the lack of use of Louis Garrel's character? I thought we'd spend a lot more time. Uh, I don't want to say physically. I thought we'd spend a lot more time with him as he's isolated in his thoughts. But this is very much a Dujardin-led film. Were you surprised by how there's sort of like an imbalance, I guess?
No, I mean I think it's deliberate. I mean the whole idea is that um, this character, Dreyfus, is forgotten. Like they
Hmm.
want him forgotten. They like the public, even the public in the film, are just like, well, we got our justice, like we can move on. And so I think the idea that we don't spend time with him is actually kind of a smart choice because it's what the French army wants. It's what everybody wants in that film except Dujardin, who is the one who's like, well, we can't forget about him because for me this isn't over.
I also like normally it would be used as a device, and I guess it sort of is here, but essentially this it's a lot about doors being slammed or the case wanting to be closed at every single increment, and it's surrounded by all these antagonistic forces, some that are sort of um, as Picard's character navigates this new branch, because essentially he's put in a position of power that he's essentially powerless because he's got so many figures working against him. I quite like the progression of that story and how it's told through the sort of sanctuarium of the protected offices of the military, but also how it gets transferred into the court system. And it's pretty cool that it's tied to Emile Zola's like there's this, it's a true story. So
Yeah,
I liked how we're able to look back at history through all the inner workings of how the system would work, all the if you want to call it corruption. How
yeah.
did you feel about that progression where he's continually uh, just dealing with doors being closed or when you think that he might get brevity or win post something in the win column that he it's more three steps back. How did you feel about that progression of all those elements?
I mean, this is a movie where even by the end, no one wins, and I think that's like kind of the whole thing of it. Like, I mean, it's not a spoiler to say that like Dreyfus eventually gets freed, but even then, like he's been away so long that he misses out on the advancements he would have made had he not been found guilty. And Picard keeps his position and he advances, but like the French army doesn't win, the public doesn't win, and at least in the way that they wanted to, that they thought they had. And so this is really a movie about everyone just trying to protect the status they have. Um, and so of course people, if your livelihood's threatened, if your status is threatened, you start closing doors. You start pushing people out away from the truth, away from justice and those things. And so I think the screenplay does a good job of we follow Picard, and yeah, you're right. Like each step he keeps getting pushed back a few more and has to find a way around or another process to try and free Dreyfus.
Look-wise, I mean, it's not an overly stylized film. It's not overly polished. I think it's more. Uh, it feels stripped down. Obviously, costume design plays something. Production plays a lot into the authenticity of that era. Um, how did you feel about the just the overall style of the film?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it was production design was great. I mean, they clearly had some money to make the period setting feel like it was very handsomely produced. But yeah, the look of the film is not particularly flashy
Hmm.
uh, or anything like that. The cinematography is uh, beautiful, but not in a way that draws attention to itself. But I mean, I think again that serves the film. I mean, this is a talkie picture. This is again, people in rooms. This is really about focusing on the contradictions and all of those things that are part of Picard's journey to try and free this man. So I think the look of the film serves that purpose well in terms of keeping our attention on what people are saying, not so much on what they're wearing or or like anything else like that.
I quite like the supporting character presence of Mathieu Almeric. He's a handwriting expert.
Yeah.
Is there any takeaways like that or winks from any of the supporting cast that you can think back of?
I mean, he was fun. I mean, his role was really small. I
Yeah.
was kind of surprised he even I was just like, oh, that's an interesting role to take. Because he's in like four scenes maybe. Yeah, the supporting cast was great. Emmanuelle Seigner is like really good. She's always great. As the mistress. Yeah, it was yeah. I mean, nothing. I mean, it's an ensemble piece. Everyone does their part really well. Yeah. You?
Yeah, I going back to Singer, I again she's presented as one thing, but there's a lot more history and layers to that character, and I think in the denouement of their relationship, I think there's an interesting wink about what makes things work between them and why they should stick to that. I thought it was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
And Dujardin, I think this is one of his better roles. I mean, we have to extract the last 6 years, but it feels as if this is one of his better performances. Overall, what did you rate this film?
3.5 out of 5. Yeah, like there is something to it. It was a lot. I was really expecting just sort of a straightforward sort of chamber drama sort of thing, but it has real life to it. It has real life to it. It's compelling and intriguing. Yeah, it really works. So, but again, like just to circle back to the beginning of our conversation, uh, it's not, I don't think it's an essential Polanski picture.
Hmm.
I'm actually a little surprised that the Césars went so nuts for it. Like this was the same year that was like Les Miserables, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I Was Almost by the Grace of God, uh, which are all great. Well, I'm not a big fan of Les Miserables, but about more or less all very well received films. And I'm a bit surprised at this, which for me comparatively is kind of like it's nice. It's a nice film, and I think for Polanski's late career, probably one of his better ones, but that he got Best Director and shared co screenwriter is a bit surprising. And again, like it goes back to it's not an essential film. I don't think anyone really needs to feel they need to go see it. Uh, Lucretia Martel, you're right. She had this real consideration for awarding the film in Venice, and I recognize that struggle and that grappling of like, the man makes the movie, and maybe the picture reflects who he is. But she notably didn't attend the gala dinner for the film either.
Hmm.
So, um, yeah, I just want to say, as a picture, it's good. I enjoyed my time with it. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it's not essential. I don't think anyone needs to race out to see it or try and find it. Like if they haven't in the last 6 years, you'll be fine if you don't do that now. Polanski will be okay. He doesn't need he doesn't need your support.
Well, I'm stamping this with the 3 stars on my part. I want to say that the 2+ hours runtime just went by swiftly. I was never disengaged. I was never bored. And I like the fact that the pacing, it just takes its time to really dig deep into the sensationalism behind the case, the all the technical backstabbing that occurs. Again, everybody has an agenda. They want to protect themselves. I found that fascinating, and it's not unlike something that we would see today in a modern context. Uh, it's a solid piece, and I echo the statements that you made about the César that year. Portrait of a Lady on Fire for me is a masterwork, and should have just swept
Mhm.
that award edition. But yeah, it's for me, it's a good piece, and I too think that there's no reason to run or to buy an expensive Blu-ray copy of this film if you wanted to have seen it beforehand. But yeah, it's a solid piece. And that's a wrap on our review of An Officer and a Spy. Thank you very much, Kevin, for your thoughts. And we'll be sure to put in some other reviews shortly before our official launch, which is should be occurring next month. Thank you very much. And signing off, this is Eric and Kevin for IndieSponge.
Have a good one.
I'm Eric Lavallée. I'm editor-in-chief and site owner for IONCINEMA.com. And this is,
Kevin Jagernauth, contributing writer for the playlist.
and together we are IndieSponge.